Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where we're gathered today, the Narrawal people, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and also acknowledge all the wonderful Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today. Now I'm going to introduce Justine van Mourik, the Director of Exhibitions and Collections of Parliament House, to talk to us about the collection and your work here.
Thanks, Penelope. I'm going to do that thing I do at the beginning of the school tour. Can I have a show of hands if you've been in this building before? That's pretty good. It's not bad.
Probably with the school.
Did you get dragged through at school? I'm too old for that. One of the wonderful things about this building, and I'm going to explain, for some of you this probably is a bit remedial, but for others it hopefully will just give you a bit of insight into this building. And I say this building because I separate this building from the government. The Parliament is not the same as the government. Parliament House was designed to have a life of 200 years. Parliamentarians come and go, this building will remain. And one of the beautiful things about this building is when Mitchell Jergler Thorpe were designing this building, the question of meaning came up. How do you imbue a structure with meaning? And Ronaldo Jergler wrote quite a seminal paper to the then Speaker, which was Billy Snedden, saying the only way that I can imbue a building with meaning and what it means to be Australian in all its facets is through the use of art. And basically asked Snedden to give him a fairly large sum of money to create what would become the Parliament House Art Craft Program. And that art craft program was more than 70 commissions given to Australian artists and craftspeople to create everything from the mosaic on the forecourt through to the sculptures in the gardens, fabric, lights, installations, you name it, and artists were given those commissions. And this building is a kind of a testament to their care, their skill, some extraordinary craftsmanship, and the forward-thinking vision of Ronaldo Jergler. And at the same time, I think it mattered a lot to Jergler what our elected representatives put on their office walls. Because frankly, if you let them decorate their own office, it's not good. So the second part of that unprecedented art craft program was what we call the rotational or rotating collection. And the Construction Authority had its own curator, Katrina Rumley, and Katrina was given a checkbook and allowed to basically buy works of art to fill the building. And I think she bought something like 2,800 works in about a 7-year period.
Say that on the microphone. Wow.
Yeah, she was a registrar's nightmare because she used to just go to shows and walk in and go, I'll have the whole lot. And you know, my truck's out the back. And so she bought 2,800 works of art. And so the minute that the parliamentarians moved into this building, my predecessors were around there going, right, so pick something for your office. And so it's become, over the past 30 years, it's our 30th anniversary this year, it's become an accepted part of the experience of being an elected representative in this building is the opportunity to select from the best of Australian contemporary art and craft. There are people in this room who are in our collection, whether they realise it or not. And I have to tell you, I think I was talking with Esther when she came up, not one of them has ever said to me, you know, nick off, I don't want any. I don't want any art for my office. So you are in the unenviable position of all the art forms of being right up in their grill every day. You are in their offices, you are in their corridors, you are in the spaces that they inhabit. So please never forget that. It is a contemporary collection. You know, I'm not doing Street and Conde Roberts. I'm doing Piccinini, Bell, and
both are here.
Hey?
Both are here.
I know. So, you know, you are up in their grill, you are up in their offices, you are there as a daily reminder that, you know, that a life exists outside of this building, A lot of artists will try and sell me work of parliamentarians. You know, I've done this great silk screen of Julia Gillard. I'll go, that's fantastic. But they don't need to see any more of themselves than they already do. So what I'm looking to buy are works that reflect what's going on outside. What is going on outside this building? What does it mean to be Australian? What does it mean to live in a pluralist society? What does it mean to be truly multicultural? What are the experiences of our first Australians? So these are the works that we're looking to buy. We're looking to buy works that have meaning. So it is easy to walk down the corridors and sort of see it as wallpaper. If you work in this building, some people kind of, you know, they'll blank it after a while. So we keep moving it, we keep rotating it. You know, we were not above a bit of gorilla hanging. The other day we brought out quite a strong picture from the 80s by Gil Jamieson of basically a dying cow and giraffe. And put it in a corridor because it's topical, it's now. So we will move the art around, you know, we will buy work that we think is stimulating. It is not decoration, it is inspiration. And that's how we treat it. You will only get to see a very small fraction while you're here, I'm afraid. But know that you are there, artists are there, they are continually there, we are still buying. We buy between about 50 and 100 works a year. And mostly at that kind of, at a lower price point, at the lower end of the spectrum. I think our average acquisition price is about $8,000. We only buy living Australian artists, we only buy at the first point of sale. So we don't buy from Sotheby's or Christie's or resellers. We're buying directly from artists in a lot of cases where they're not represented. That's something that we love doing. We buy directly from art centres, from Indigenous art centres. So, you know, if you want to send me something, oh God.
Do it.
It's art, A-R-T, at aph.gov.au.
Writing it down, I can see
Yeah,
it.
seriously, writing it down now, it's in the transcript. But no, look, send me something. You know, it's impossible for me to be everywhere all of the time. I am very frugal with your taxpayer dollar. You probably won't see me at everything that opens and shuts. And we do, you know, we do kind of rely a lot on sort of spotters in other states and territories to find things that they think might suit us. We're interested in art that reflects portfolio business. It's really interesting when you do sort of the Minister for Agriculture, that one's an easy one, cows and sheep. But you go to the Minister for Health, I mean, what have we got there? You know, what are the stories that we can be telling? How are we helping that minister? You know, human services, social services, those sorts of things. So they're the kinds of stories that we're looking to tell. You know, agriculture and defence are easy, but human stories are harder. And, you know, people do want things that are meaningful to them in their office. You know, we have parliamentarians cry in selection sessions because, you know, a work has affected them quite deeply. So I think never forget that you are an intrinsic part of this building, but also don't forget that they're only here for 20 weeks a year. The other 30, they're back in their electorate. You know, how much are there? And for those of you in the smaller states like Tassie, you've got 12 senators. There's literally a senator around every corner. Get to know them. I honestly get to know them. Go in their office. If their office looks boring, their electorate office, maybe offer them something.
Not for free, obviously.
No.
No. High price.
Rental people. But, you know, maybe offer them something, maybe they invite them to a show. And I think a lot of the time, because I do see all of the parliamentarians, we go to them individually with what's available, we allow them to select from the catalogue. You know, they're into it, but sometimes they just don't know how to be into it. Maybe they don't get invited to things, or they don't, you know, step foot in their local gallery, I don't know. But once we get into the selection session and we're flipping through the folders and, you know, they're right into it. And then the art comes, and like I said, no one ever tells me to nick off. They're always like, oh my God, the art people are here. So, you know, you are the art people, and I am your representative in Canberra.
Great. Thank you so much for that.
My pleasure.
Does anyone have any questions for Justine? I mean, that was a pretty insightful... Oh yeah, great. You know, I haven't got the mic, people. Oh yeah, great. Thanks, Celia.
Yeah. I was just wondering if you collected anything other than painting. Do you collect video work and installation work?
Yeah, we do.
Painting's good.
That's painting.
Yes, I second that. Painting is good. We pretty much collect across the range. I mean, the thing you have to remember about this collection, because it's a furnishing collection, it works very hard. And I understand that, the art galleries have the luxury of, time and conservators, and basically when an election's called, it's all hands on deck and we need to move everything. So our criteria is not so much painting, it's robust. We like robust works of art. We don't have time to kind of stop and give, my conservation or construct installations. It has to be something we can essentially pick up and move. So we do collect with painting, works on paper, glass, ceramics, pretty much everything. About the only thing we don't collect is wearable art, because God knows what would happen if we put it in this way. So yeah, no, we don't do much in the wearable area. Robust is my criteria, because art does work really hard. I mean, most of the galleries have got between 1% and 5% on display. We've got over 50% on display. And like I said, when an election happens, we're moving 2,800 works in 6 weeks, and we just wholesale, stripping suites of work and then reallocating it back to parliamentarians, and especially when there's a change of government, it's a huge amount of work to move in a very short period of time. So it needs to be robust.
Oh yes, another one. Hi, Kelly.
Next door. Hey, do you ever have artists in residence here, or a program to facilitate artists kind of occupying the space?
We have done commissions in the past with an artist in residence. I think the last one famously was Anne Zahalka in 2013. She shot a series of The House at Work, and that was fantastic. It's something that we're looking at. I mean, one of the other things too is, as this building was nearing completion, of course, as with everything, it was well over budget. So the two things they decided to cut were the landscaping and the art program. So the full scale of the art program was never realised, and I'm actually quite glad about that. Because what it's left are spaces that we can now fill. So we're commissioning things like a report that says, how many sculpture sites are there in this precinct that are yet to be filled, over the 200-year lifespan of the building. Can we do a major commission once every 5 or 10 years in order to start filling those spaces? So there are still opportunities, and at the moment we're just bedding down our collection management, getting everything right, and then we'll probably start wading into the murky waters of commissioning.
And there was someone behind Kelly, I saw a hand. Or was that just my
I
eyes?
had the same question.
Oh, yeah. Oh, great, okay. Wow, heaps of questions. How wonderful. Yeah, you pass that up. Thank you.
Justine, I'm wondering if you're able to speak to some of the non-commissioned artistic activity that's happened around Parliament House. I can think of a few examples, but when things do happen, artistic interventions, what are you thinking, and do you take note of them or record them in any way?
Yeah, look, I think one of the things is, we're not, as I said, we're not government, we're Parliament. So we do record, particularly what goes on in the precinct. The exhibition that you'll get a little sneaky peek at tonight and a free colouring in poster to take home is about this building and how this building has been represented by artists, and not necessarily artists in our collection. So I've spent the last sort of 4 or 5 years trawling, collecting how artists have represented this building, which is interesting because it's not about politics usually. There's a genuine fascination with the flag on the top of the flag mast. So you'll see in the exhibition there's a recurring theme about the flag, and I'm not sure what that is, but it seems to kind of be part of any representation of this building. But I think we do kind of see ourselves as, it's not our main job, but we do sort of see ourselves as archivists of what goes in, what goes on inside and around this building.
Great. We've got 3 minutes, so...
I just had a quick one.
Yeah, great.
I'm a visual artist, and I actually work in the kitchen here at Parliament House sometimes, and I didn't realise you had such a large art department. how would you get a job in your line?
When the kids in the art.
Well, you've already been security cleared, so you're kind of halfway there. Yeah, it wasn't that confronting when our handlers had to get security cleared. Woo! Some of them were really worried about their Facebook profile and what they'd said on them. How do you get a job here? You have to be a little bit mad. That probably helps. Look, we've expanded quite rapidly. I think when I started here in 2013, there were 7 of us. And it became really apparent very early on that there was a lot of work still to be done in terms of cataloguing, in terms of digitisation. So basically nothing had been shot digitally. You know, we had 35mm slides that, you know, when we take these pictures around, we'd offer them to parliamentarians, and then the work would turn up and the slide would be pink and the work would be orange. You know, so we quickly realised there was a bit of remedial work to do, so we've sort of scaled up to accommodate that. And we also, with the changes in office holders and cabinets and prime ministers, and so they, you know, we've had to expand our art handler pool. So there's about, on and off, almost 20 of us now, working mostly on project work to get some of those backlog issues addressed. But, you know, you come to us in the normal way. We advertise, in fact, we advertised a position fairly recently. We advertise, you know, Arts Hub, Museums Australia, those sorts of places. So that's where we are, and we do have jobs fairly regularly.
And do you have any links with the actual art schools in Australia, as in, like, you know, we're promoting pathways for people to have jobs outside of just being an artist? Because let's be honest, it's very hard to live as an artist. So what kind of recommendations would you have for people that are studying?
One of the things that we do is we've instituted a program. We take an intern from the ANU School of Art History and Curatorship. We'll take an intern and teach them the reality of working in this environment. We also recently, many of you would be aware, there's a huge tapestry in the Great Hall, Arthur Boyd designed tapestry. We had to take that down for the building work, as you can hear and see. That tent on the roof is not where we have raves. It would be awesome though. So when we took that tapestry down, we realised that, you know, basically, for those of you with a conservation bent, we had to vacuum it front and back. We realised that was a big job, so we made a partnership with the University of Canberra with their conservation students, and they've come in and vacuumed it, and it's been fantastic. I mean, the experience that they have gained from that, free labour. No, it is. It's about making those partnerships with tertiary education. For us, it's also about making partnerships with our cultural institutions and bringing them into this environment. You know, our parliamentarians are incredibly busy. They work on 15-minute increment appointments. I don't know any parliamentarian that comes here in a sitting week and goes, you know what, I've got a couple of hours to spare, I'll nick down the National Gallery. So what we try and do is we've made partnerships with War Memorial, Portrait Gallery, IATSIS and other institutions, and brought work here so that they can be seen in this building as well. So it is about forging those partnerships. So for us primarily it's with the other institutions and with the tertiary education sector.
Really fast, thank you, that was great. But you did say right at the beginning, you're not sure if you know whether you're in the collection. Do you have a listing of all the works? And, because I think it's really important that if people are in the collection that they should know they are, because at the very least that's something you can put on a resume. But yeah, anyway, is there a listing, a catalogue, something available?
Yeah, so we do have a collection management system, and as I said before, some of our legacy cataloguing was not great, and some of that, particularly in the 80s, about rapid collecting, where you're collecting 2,800 works at a time. Apparently some dealers forgot to tell artists that work had been bought. So we are methodically working back through that catalogue to correct it, to correct things like, you know, birth dates and titles and years of production and media. So there's a lot of legacy cataloguing we need to do. But the upshot of that and the digitisation is that the whole thing will be available online. It will link to Trove, and you will be able to trawl through it like you can any other public collection.
I hesitate to say when.
There's almost 7,000 objects.
Yeah.
So Dave, our photographer, has just done, I think, 700 construction photos. So we're humming through it. But yeah, you might need to talk to my colleagues in ICT or curatorial. Yeah.
There was one more.
Hi, my name's Jenny. I'll make it quick. I just have a special request. If you could try a bit harder on the agriculture thing. I think it's sheep and cows that have done a lot of damage to our land in Australia, not just for dispossessing Aboriginal people, but also the damage from the hoofs. And some of our bush foods are actually superfoods, some of the best in the world because this land is so ancient.
That's true. I think sorry, sheep and cows is probably not a fair comment. I think what I was saying before is we're not buying work that's comfortable. They're not comfortable sheep and cows. If there is such a thing. We are giving those perspectives. So what I was about to say is there was work we bought quite recently by a Melbourne artist called Dale Cox, and it depicts 3 sheep on a gold, quite a blingy gold leaf background, but on the backs of those sheep are miniature trees and giant electrical transformers. So that series of work deals very much with the clearing of land for agriculture, for power, for other industrial purposes. So, you know, whether or not that parliamentarian who has that work, and I think at the moment it is in the ministerial wing, whether they realise the intent of it, it's there, it's quietly there doing its thing. So I don't think ever assume that we're just here, as I said, it's not decoration, it's inspiration. We're not here to just put pretty pictures of flowers on the wall.
Well, thank you, Justine. Please join me in thanking you.
Thanks, Justine. Where's the on button? Thanks, Justine. And that was a good question about the kinds of work, because one thing I was really struck by when Justine and I had the chance to have lunch and a good chat a while ago was just seeing and getting to understand just how much critically challenging work is in your collection, particular work that Justine has acquired. It's kind of like, you know, we need this space to be somewhere where when people are walking around doing their everyday jobs, whether they're elected or not, you know, when they work here or not, that the work is challenging them. And I think that is really, really important. And I don't know how much time they're going to have to kind of, you know, wander and enjoy the space as well. But yeah, there's a lot of really great work to see. And I also want to acknowledge that we've got Cara Kirkwood in the space. Is she here? She was here before. In that case, can I publicly thank Cara Kirkwood for helping us out this morning, getting some of us in. But thank you. Just wanted to give us a wave. So she's waving. Hi, Cara. Cara is the, tell us her official title.
Indigenous strategy and something or other.
Engagement. And it's just fantastic that Parliament has someone of Cara's expertise and awesomeness in that role. And yeah, these guys are a good team. Good morning, everyone. How are you? Justine has set the tone of the school group kind of coming in. I came through with school. It felt like every year. And in fact, something that I wanted to say yesterday with Nick but forgot, and it's actually something that's good for us to advocate about, is that, you know, there's a list, and someone will know this more than me, there's a list of national cultural institutions that are on the Department of Education's list, and it means that school kids get to come and they get subsidised to come. And top on the list is Parliament House, and Justine giving the thumbs up, and also the War Memorial, but the NGA is not on that list, which means that, I don't want to get this wrong, there is some kind of subsidy, but it's less than like the top one. But wouldn't it be fantastic if, you know, every school kid, when they come and visit, had to go and have a great experience at the NGA as well as Parliament House. It just seems odd that Parliament and the War Memorial are the top two.
Agreed. But it was so great to see so many kids, school kids there yesterday.
Oh, that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we're going to chat about
Yesterday.
Yeah.
So many things. I'll just do a little recap because I know that there's some people who have joined us today that weren't with us yesterday.
Welcome.
Welcome. We had a wonderful welcome yesterday by Auntie Matilda, who really set the tone of what we're doing here, which was really special. Then we had an introduction by our Deputy Chair, Sally Smart. And NAVA, Esther and I talked through NAVA's strategic plan and our plans to revise the Code of Practice and really aim for nationally agreed, nationally consistent standards for a contemporary arts sector that's ambitious and fair. And we're going to publish that on our website in the next few days, so I do encourage you all to have a look at it because we're so excited about this document. It's really, really great.
And please tell us what you think, because you'll see that the plan itself, like that plan, that ambition around having those nationally consistent standards, but also around the advocacy and policy and action. This is stuff that is going to be led by all the conversations that we all have together, you know, rolling over the next few years. Like, you know, in the last, Penelope gave a great overview yesterday of the work we've done the last few years leading up to the plan. And then, in the time that I can still get away with being new, I have visited every state so far, except the Northern Territory. I know there's just a handful of us here from the Northern Territory today, so welcome again. And in each one of those cities, and also I visited regional places, we've had members gatherings, we've had roundtables on what are the key issues in the state at the moment. And then we've also had some critical conversations, several states with elections coming up, and we started to talk about how we're going to collaborate on that, you know, really timely, visible advocacy, because of course people are listening more leading up to an election, and all those conversations, as you'll see in the plan, are just going to keep continuing so that we can hear and learn, you know, and push and advocate and make change.
Thanks. We then, after that amazing thing, we had a wonderful session hosted by Peter White and Richard Bell on self-determination and First Nations first. And I loved that that session was an hour and a half. I thought that we really gave everybody a good opportunity to think and talk and share their thoughts about it. And I got heaps out of that session, so thanks guys. And thank you for everybody for their contributions in that session. We then had lunch, which was, I think, almost my favourite part of the day because we were sitting in the sun and having really good conversations that unfortunately we haven't been able to have in this context of sitting in a theatre, which was very like us and them kind of vibe, which is not really what we were hoping to do, but limited by venues and really wanting to be at the NGA and Parliament House. That's just the format that we're stuck with. So I really appreciated everyone who came and spoke to me, and I hope that you all got really great conversations with each other and have had lots of ideas and connections. And
yeah, I completely agree, and I also really appreciate all the chats that I got to have with everyone too. It's that kind of, you know, trying to strike that balance between the get what we're given of our venues and opening up the conversation, which we're going to do our best to do a lot more of today.
That's right. And just as you say that, we won't do that right now because the session after lunch was on ARIs, and we had a really great history of the basement project from Patricia Pincinini and the impact of being involved in setting up and running an ARI had on her own practice. The kind of impact that I know we all feel, any of us that have been involved in one or more ARIs, and it tends to be the case that when you're involved in one ARI, you kind of get really into it, and you're involved in so many. It's such a great thing to do for your own practice. But we were limited because it was only 1 hour. We really ran out of conversation time. So I'm going to invite now Channon and Llewellyn to come and present and talk and lead some conversation, because I know that all the REs got together last night and had good conversations about what they want to get out of these 2 days and what they want to get out of NAVA and all this great work we're going to do. So Esther and I, we could even, do you want to stand up there or do you want to come and sit in the chairs? We're going to hand over.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you very much.
The time is appreciated. I'll try not to, I don't know, hold the momentum of today, because it's going to be a good one. My name's Channon Goodwin. I'm from Bus Projects in Melbourne, but I've only been there for 5 years previously from Brisbane, and I did all my study there as an artist, and started getting involved in organisations at that point, at Metro Arts and Vox Copy, and brief stint at the Queensland Art Gallery once they opened the Gallery of Modern Art. So I think it's a bit of a Brisbane alliance back up on the stage. So we hopefully, but I was a bit nervous about chewing up time, so I've written stuff for this. So forgive me if I read. Given there were so many artist-run spaces with us for Future Forward from right around the country, it was a good opportunity to reinforce yesterday's talk, which I must say was quite personally moving. I mean, those stories I think resonate with a lot of people who have got involved in organisations. So in a way, this is, in a sense, we can provide a little counterpoint to some of the more personal discussions that happened yesterday, and maybe get in the mood of this more political day today. So to contextualise further, I thought it was useful to do so. With history spanning back to the independent galleries of the late 1960s, artist-run organisations in Australia are important sites for self-determination for artists within the art system. They achieve this through a variety of collectivist strategies, collaborative actions, which enable artists to resist established systems of commodification and offer narratives to alternative narratives to dominant forms, often with important political ramifications. I think Richard Bell talked about this, really astutely yesterday in terms of kicking down doors. I mean, this does really allow artists to do so where they choose to. Living on well beyond previously presumed ephemerality, artist-run organisations now play an essential role in sustaining Australia's arts ecosystem and in imagining alternative futures. Working together in networks, we're involved in one network, but there are many. We're involved in one called All Conference. We are generating new knowledge and contributing to discussions around conditions of labour, under-resourcing, and foregrounding issues of gender, cultural diversity, First Nations agency, LGBTQIA+ representation in the arts. I thought it just in terms of ending my little contextual work, Professor Daniel Palmer wrote over a decade ago, artist-run is a loose term that can be applied to a gallery space, a conceptual project, a collective, any combination of the above. Simply put, artists are in charge. With artists in control, traditional definitions between artist, curator, individual and institution are broken down. Artists become administrators, curators, writers, bookkeepers, while theorists, designers, musicians are encouraged to fuse disciplines and enter into the nebulous world of contemporary art. Such fluidity significantly adds to the experimentation and innovation of the contemporary art scene. So just to kind of bring it to a point in a way, on reflection we've pulled together 3 strategic areas that we think NAVA could assist with ARIs, although by no means this is the end point. This is kind of from our point of view. So
yeah, sure. And we talked about a lot of things last night, and we just thought we'd try to keep it brief and really punchy. So I've written down some things. I'll just read out. So talking as a group yesterday, a key concern for many of the artist-run initiatives across Australia has been recognising the robust research that already exists around the importance of ARIs, particularly the ongoing work of All Conference. And we'd like to kind of put it to NAVA, how can we work together with NAVA to research our sector in an effective and timely manner? And
I give you a second one. So how can we institute expert care for the RE sector to better champion the unique benefits and diverse operational models? And this is something, I guess, that's really particular in terms of how organisations that may have alternative models of management are not judged necessarily as just second best to more traditional organisations.
Sure. And the last one we've got here is the narrative that ARIs are a stepping stone for young artists is no longer accurate or relevant. Perhaps it was never accurate or relevant. And artists are actually making a deliberate decision to work with ARIs as fluid and responsive spaces which are advancing best practice for artists. So can we work together to better advocate for the value of the ARI sector in the wider art ecology?
You can pass the mic back. Oh yeah, do you want to ask questions? Yeah, you can interrogate, I guess. It's not just a one-way flow.
Yeah, 15 minutes.
Sure, 15 minutes.
Great.
Sure, okay.
We could return to the points. Let's go on. So the first one was about the pre-existing research in regards to the importance of ARIs for artists. So, I mean, you could go through a couple of the points that all conference got together.
I think one of the points was that none of this is new, right? So none of the things that I say, the things that I read, the language I use, it's all been sort of done before. That's why I guess when we set up a network, really we didn't necessarily foreground it around making art together necessarily, but gathering knowledge. So All Conference has a library online that we try as much as possible to ask authors to republish. Really difficult to find texts on this part of the sector, which is often gets kind of buried or carried on word of mouth, or through talks like yesterday's talk. It was a good example of how knowledge has been, I guess, passed on in terms of these stories, these narratives, and I guess that does perpetuate a certain kind of ephemerality of knowledge in terms of trying to put forward cases for the sector. And I guess there's a kind of a literature review process that's actually really useful for this part of the sector, which because there's already the things that exist through catalogue essays, through research projects, through exhibitions on REs that curators have done research with, previous reports that NAVA has done, previous events that NAVA has done, this patchwork of knowledge that kind of comes out can really be woven together, I think, much more effectively, without even needing to do a kind of a bulk load of new research. That's helpful, but...
Yeah, sure, and that if we're going to look historically at the importance of ARIs and try to integrate that into a code of practice, we want to be really sure that we're getting the breadth of what's happening. And I think all conferences are pretty bloody good at getting that breadth, you know.
Well, it's just in the infancy, but I think it's also a collaborative idea, right? So it doesn't include, all conference doesn't include everyone, right? So we acknowledge that was kind of a way to make, initially just to make things work. But it was also the benefits ideally are broad. But the notion of kind of collaboration across sector is really important because we don't all agree, right? So we don't all have the same kind of priorities or art form interests, right? And that's fine, I think, in terms of that. But it does mean that each of those facets really can be combined to kind of create a really interesting picture, knowledge picture. But perhaps there are, I mean, with that in mind, perhaps there are other perspectives that we can draw from the audience. Because I mean, we have so many good people here who have either worked within or may have critiques of, you know, these things are all really open to critique. I can't see anyone because the lights in the house. Oh, Richard.
Oh, you've got someone up. Someone's coming over here.
Oh, okay, looks like I've got the mic. Hi, I'm Dan. Over this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got into a few conversations in breaks and floors with people, and we did start talking about how cappuccino isn't $1.80 anymore. It's not the 90s, and so as inspiring as that was, there's kind of new challenges now, and someone, perhaps it was even you, mentioned that maybe we need to go towards a building-less space, but that we still need to create community and everything. So with the concept of future forward, I'm kind of interested to go, what is the future of the RE if it doesn't mean a space, and what are the amazing opportunities that are there, and what are some of the pitfalls, and what are some of the great projects that are being done now that I can go and visit or hear more about today?
Well, I think like we're talking about the breadth of artists are ambitious and what they can do. I think there are really interesting spaces that are being run as bricks and mortar spaces across Australia. In the past 10 years, there's been really ambitious spaces, and we've seen a kind of transition towards ARIs having a more institution-like aesthetic, you know, having really ambitious exhibition spaces, trying to push in-store to be really professional. But then there's incredible off-site projects happening too. So I don't think I'm not going to try to list the cool things, because I think I'll have to think about it and I'll miss a whole bunch of stuff. But
whether it's in this combo with a microphone or in breaks, I want to talk to all those people. So
yeah,
I'm just putting my hand up to say, let's
cool.
talk in the break.
Yes.
Richard.
I think it's
Is this turned on?
got it.
Turn on for me.
I'm sorry.
Look, ours are seen as well, they're not seen as being fully legit. Yeah? What are your strategies to overcome that? You know, this is what I think is absolutely necessary. I've been a part of an ARI my entire artistic existence, 30 years or more. So I'm interested to hear what you want to say.
I mean, I think you're right. In a sense, we grew up in the shadow of a lot of the initiatives that you're involved in, and I think that really encouraged a generation of young Queensland artists to get involved in this kind of activity. I think for me, what I noticed as I've kind of gone through different levels of organisation and felt like I was sort of a bit of a kind of an agent within those organisations. I eventually retreated out of the larger institutions and deliberately chose to stay within smaller organisations, artist-run organisations, artist-centric organisations. And for me, what I found was that I wanted to use my understanding of that hierarchy to be able to speak quite stridently about the value of these really artist-centric organisations to these other organisations. So, and then also use institutional structures for the betterment of artists. So if I could stomach doing those things, right? So not everyone feels comfortable to do that, but I sort of grew up in kind of an aftermath of a lot of political action, right? So I was like, I missed kind of the high points of community radio. I didn't grow up I just grew up in the shadow of Bjorky Peterson, so I didn't really have any kind of cause to kind of struggle with. I was pretty privileged. I was a white, straight guy, so no problemo, So this was my chance to try to put a case for what I saw as a part of the sector under pressure, but a part of the sector that had huge value to the whole sector, right? So I sort of built my organisations that I was involved with as permanent as possible, so that they could collect history and speak, across a decade. So Box Copy is a decade old now, and getting involved with BUS and trying to build up that organisation. And when it did get funding, to try to use that to create advocacy bodies to advocate for that part of the sector. So really to try to use those institutional structures to build trust with the gamut of the sector, from funding bodies to state galleries to NAVA to others, so, and then be able to kind of create, to be able to channel this kind of knowledge through, and other people's work that's already been done, try to channel it through, and then that way legitimise the knowledge that's been.
And I think I'll just add to that about being legit, and I think in the past couple of years, for me, the process of making ARIs incorporated not-for-profit associations to have a constitution, a board, policy, procedures, health and safety. I mean, it sounds painful, but this shit actually helps.
Yeah.
And then we start having bargaining power with councils, with state government departments. And, this is actually really sensible processes, and they're not selling out. They're like, not-for-profit institution is like a radical socialist collective. You've got to stop thinking about it as being corporate, because it's really not.
I got no problem with the corporatisation. Let's face it. We live in a corporatised world. We're going to give it the program. We're going to corporatise. That's what I reckon. I'm thinking. We do that through the ARIs at the very bottom, at the grassroots. we artists need to get together. We need to get our shit together. You know, become incorporated. You know, and you know, take advantage of all the likes and perks that are available to the corporations. You know? Well, this is democracy. Let's participate.
Sorry. I'm Grace. I'm from Constance Artist Run Initiative in Hobart, and I just thought I'd speak because we are an artist run initiative. We've been around since 2003, but we actually abandoned our gallery space in 2015, and we've been sort of working from a nomadic satellite model, sort of project by project basis. And that shift actually allowed us to go from charging artists $900 or $1,000 to have a show in our main space to commissioning and paying artists for every show that they're in, and sort of at the NAVA award wages and above. And there was something that was said yesterday as well about people not going to galleries or people not going to ARIs, and that's just, in my experience, it's just simply not true. And for us, Constance has an average of sort of like 2,000 visitors to each of our shows, which is a larger visitor number than the Chaos organisation in our state as well. Yeah, in Hobart. I guess I just found that kind of comment, it's maybe not so up to date. I think a lot of people, well, REs are doing really, really important work in communities, in connecting people and audiences, and it's not just to do with having these shows on a wall and then people coming and seeing it, but there's all of these events and talks and they become these meeting points for communities as well.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think the one of the risks for the traditional model of maybe university graduate-centric artist-run spaces that they exist completely divorced from their communities. They simply channel through graduates or channel through the arts community, and they kind of sit on the top of their community. And I think that's to their peril, right? So I think a lot of organisations, Constance and others, are really embedding themselves much more truly within their communities and try to acknowledge the context in which they're kind of residing in. Sorry.
Just quickly, like I've exhibited at ARIs and I love them and support them, but a criticism I have experiencing them is like, say with the meeting last night, this is a series of questions that I'll do really quickly. Like, how many black and brown people were at the meeting last night? How many black and brown people are on your boards? How many black and brown people come to your exhibition openings? And how many black and brown artists show in your spaces?
Yeah, it's true. It's really white. These are white spaces. The you can read a really great article by Andy Butler called "Safe White Spaces," which talks about this problem. There's not many, last night, and they're there. But I think that so it's not defending or pretending that that's a problem. It's because of our the way that those models have developed. A lot of their attachment to who goes to university, who graduates, and what kind of career trajectories they've kind of come with. But a lot of spaces I think are really trying to be really honest about that and flip that model. So Seventh Gallery in Melbourne have shaken up their board pretty radically. They've really emphasised decolonisation as a main driver for their program. They recently hosted a talk that All Conference supported with Decolonizing Space from the US, and really and that included a lot of local representatives from Indigenous organisations and artists, and really tried to lay down some serious knowledge and confront those problems. I think it's just true. I mean, there's no use denying.
Yeah, I'd say definitely it's a problem that is being talked about constantly, and the key I think was discussed yesterday is it's not just about representation in the gallery. It's at the top. It's about black and brown people being able to run their own shit and not have to go through a white institution too. So that's a potential kind of avenue for solving the ARI whiteness problem.
It should be. We should talk more about that.
Yo.
I think that's it. Was there room for another, or should we?
Yeah, I've got a mic. Yo. Chris Cabela's from Symbiotica in Perth. Hello.
Hello.
In the music industry, having decimated itself, DIY labels and indie labels aren't called DIY labels anymore, they're just called labels. My question to you would be, when do you think we're just called arts organisations or galleries? How long will that be before it's levelled?
I think it's a really important distinction that we need to make. It's that an artist-run initiative is an organisation run by artists for the benefit of artists. And I mean, I see it this really simple thing of artists need to control their own means of production, and if an organisation is run by artists, they're owning and controlling the means of their production. So I think that's, to me, it's a kind of simple definition. It's cool to have curators and arts workers involved in artist-run spaces, but we need to have some kind of solid thinking around what are the function of these spaces. They are for artists. You know, they're not for curators to further their curatorial career, or you know, for art workers to reap the benefits of the work that artists do.
Thank you. I have a gig at Cool Change on Monday night if anyone's in there.
Thanks everyone for the time.